talk that you want to share with us?
Yeah. I guess let's talk a little bit about FCoE. So if we can come over, checking out the new iPad on the screen here. So if we look at what we had before, FCoE traditionally has been really on embedded solutions like the Cisco UCS, or it's been in the top of rack switches like the Nexus 5000 from Cisco. If you see the little blue dots there, those are the fiber channel forwarders, which really has the same functionality as a fiber channel switch. And it was limited how far FCoE went. So outside of that top of rack or embedded solution, you're plugging into your existing LAN and SAN architecture. So from a user standpoint, FCoE didn't have a ton of, there wasn't a real driver. It was really pushed more by the vendor. And that was because from a cost saving standpoint, if I could, in my embedded solutions, go down to a single network where I don't have to have multiple adapter types and multiple switch types, I can reduce my footprint, I can have more density, lower power, and lower cost. And it should be more reliable because I've got fewer components. So, people had said, 3 years ago when FCoE came out, customers don't want FCoE. And no, customers don't want FCoE. Vendors had to do FCoE because Cisco would not have been able to enter the server market if it wasn't for converged networking. HP and IBM would not be able to build the next generation of dense virtual server environments without a converged infrastructure.
Yeah, heat density, big issue, right?
Heat density is a huge issue. So
and real estate, not enough real estate.
From a vendor standpoint, really mission's accomplished because they've got the new generation architecture has that. Customers aren't going out there saying, I want to buy FCoE, but they're all buying the next generation architecture, and it just has FCoE, it's in there. So, and I don't care about it because it manages the same way that it did before.
So this is another interesting dynamic. I mean, you essentially have the server vendors who are going Ethernet. I mean, they don't have to be sold on Ethernet because they need the real estate. You talked about heat density. And it looks like the storage guys are now going in that direction, right? And they're behind Cisco on this whole move.
Yeah.
So Cisco's, de facto got the server vendors lined up behind it. They're not going to fight that battle.
Yeah, Intel's definitely, big on this board. And so the other thing I'll mention on this first generation, what we saw last year is an interesting thing called the Flex or unified ports. So HP came out with the Flex Fabric Virtual Connect, which was built on QLogic technology. And that was the first product that had a port that could be fiber channel or Ethernet. And it wasn't changing an optic or even having to load different code on it. I could be fiber channel or Ethernet. So it's not that Ethernet kills fiber channel. It's really that fiber channel and Ethernet become a single solution. So 10 gigabit Ethernet, 16 gigabit fiber channel, 40 gigabit Ethernet. We're down the road going to have these ports that are just going to be able to be either. So if you're a real legacy environment where you don't want to move and you want to stay fiber channel, great, you can keep buying fiber channel, but Ethernet, if you want to move over to that, and especially more for virtual environments and all of our x86 environments, we're going to see Ethernet be much more dominant. So that was there. So second half of last year, HP started shipping the Flex ports, and at the beginning of this year, Cisco started shipping the unified ports, which are now on the new Nexus, I think it's the 5548 and the 5596. Have the unified ports, which once again can be either Ethernet or fiber channel. And then Juniper surprised a bunch of people when they came out with their new switch, the QFX 3500, that it had the same kind of flex port technology. So, most people don't think about Juniper in a storage environment, but now that they've got a port that can do FCoE on it.
So this is one of those things that users aren't explicitly demanding and consuming FCoE. They're demanding faster, cheaper servers, and they want more horsepower. And to get there, you need Ethernet.
What's great about it is that when the LAN guys say, I bought my new 10 gig platform,
yeah, right.
And the storage and the CIO says, oh, I'm under real pressure from the CEO, and they said, hey, what about this whole convergence stuff? And they go and they say, hey, wait, we've got a port, we can switch that over to fiber channel and start sucking in my storage stuff onto it. You're going to have to do it.
Do it, right. So you've got, so you're sort of you're seeing CNA adoption increase now, and that's sort of been somewhat
embedded.
stealth.
A lot of it's going to be embedded.
Right.
So when it's there, when the customer says, I've talked to a lot of end users that says, I don't really want FCoE, but when it's on every server and it's in every switch, I don't have a choice. I can't go buy separate infrastructure when I've already bought stuff that can do it.
Yeah, and it is going to cut the connection cost and bulk and all that other stuff. But it's an interesting dynamic. We've talked to a lot of users in the Wikibon community, and it's not as though they're pounding the table, say, I need this. In fact, it's the opposite. They're sort of saying, well, I don't really want to go to this new protocol and all these organizational issues. I'm worried about cascading dependencies and all these other things, which is what's going to slow adoption. But we've talked about that ogive curve, that S curve.
Yes.
And we're sort of moving up the steepness of that, where essentially the effort that you have to put in is going to give you a lot bigger return, and the ROI is going to kick in when it's embedded.
Right. So as I said, so if you look here now, here is what we have after the Cisco announcement. You now see blue dots on the core, which is in the Nexus 7000, and on the fiber channel switch side, which is the MDS product line. So I've now got a lot of places that I can deploy FCoE. And from a multi-hop environment, what I can actually do is I can have my embedded talk to my top of rack talk to my core can go down to my switch, or from my core, I can go to my storage. So really, wherever I have devices, I'm going to be able to run FCoE, and that mixing of fiber channel and FCoE can happen. So from Cisco's standpoint, we can do up to 7 ports. 7 hops. And from other vendors like EMC, it's up to like 5 hops.
So multi-hop is 7 hops. Is that actually? I mean, users,
Cisco says that they have tested 7 hops. I think they said they tested up to 10,000 devices.
But you're saying EMC, for example, supports only 5. So
EMC
5 is sort of the practical.
But this is also a mix of your fiber channel and your Ethernet. So what's really nice is if you have a certain topology that you put out for fiber channel, you can now match that on the Ethernet side. We can even do A/B separation on the SAN side. So all of the best practices that you had for the SAN, for the storage guy that says, I'm a little nervous about Ethernet, I want to take that next step, but I still want to do everything exactly the way I did on storage, I can do that with Ethernet now and just build it off of Ethernet-based components.
The other thing, too, is